All right, and we are live. Hi, everybody. Welcome to Bulltalk, BHCC's third episode. And this is our first student-run podcast here at the community college. So thanks for stopping by and checking us out. Today, we've got Professor Harris Williams with us. He is a assistant professor at BHCC in the computer science department. He's got a little bit entrepreneur background behind him, which is really neat. We're going to dive into that. He's also a lecturer at Boston Community College. He has a master's in finance and a master's in business. And we'll be able to explore how he's been able to integrate all these different studies together. Welcome, Professor Harris.
Hey, how are you guys doing? Thanks for having me on the call today.
Thanks so much for being here. And how are you doing during this COVID times? It's a year past since it's all really started. And how are you hanging in there?
I mean, it's tough. It was tough at first, but it's real testament to how we can adapt as a society. And it's really great that we have the technologies to still be able to get connected and stay connected as a community.
Yeah, I like that a lot. I like your still learning mindset here, and everything is about adaptation and continuing to grow. It's a longevity of growth that it keeps us around. The first question I wanted to ask you a little bit is, first off, some of your background, right? You played football when you were younger, right? Is that a big part of your life, a big part of your story?
Yeah, well, so when you say younger, I played football from high school to college. So I was actually when I was like really young, K through 12, I was just too big to play. So it's a funny family joke that we have is I played soccer and baseball longer than I played football, but I played football at a much higher level. So I played football at Boston College. I was team captain, and it's been pretty pivotal part of my life in terms of understanding and learning outside the classroom.
Interesting. That's so cool. Now, I know you've taken your bachelor's in computer science to help develop a program called CompuCog. Can you tell us a little about those algorithms and what was so special about solving those problems?
Yeah. So let me take you back to when I was playing at BC. So Boston College, we play at the highest level at the collegiate level. So it's one level right below the NFL. And so we're playing against the best players, and what we needed was a way to understand and learn faster, especially the position I played offensive lineman. So that's where you're required to know every single play. And so what I thought, I was a computer science major, and I was thinking to myself, hey, I got to figure out a way to help out my teammates and how to help out my teammates learn much more rapidly. And we as young adults, we like video games. So how could we take what we are learning on the field and then virtualize it? So I basically virtualized the athletic practice so that I took my understanding of artificial intelligence to learn the game of football, and then to learn our playbook, and then to also learn the opponent's plays, and then be able to virtualize that in a virtual scenario and simulation, so that as players, we could play the game in a simulated environment. It could watch us, and then it could coach us and give us instant coaching feedback so we know what we're doing right and wrong. Then it kind of built on top of that, where the coaches liked it so that they were able to basically be able to simulate their plays before they get onto the fields, and it kind of compounded from there.
Wow. So you started working on this while you were, team captain of the BC football team.
Yeah.
Wow.
The funny thing is, one of the reasons why I started doing it was, this is going to give away my age, but back then, I don't know how many of your listeners are actual programmers, but back then, Java 7 was the latest version of Java. I think right now, the latest version of Java is like Java 15.
15, yeah.
Yeah. And so Java 7 was going to Java 8, and my professors at the time didn't teach us Lambda expressions. So if you ever take that
Not
course,
there just yet. Yeah.
yeah, but it's just basically this aspect of Java that just came out in Java, and I said to myself, if my professors aren't teaching me it, how else am I going to learn it? So I took it upon myself to kind of force myself to learn it by implementing it in this application. So it was more of a learning exercise for programming, and then also to help out my teammates. Yeah.
That's so awesome. It sounds like you were really pushing the envelope in, while you're, finishing up your bachelor's to apply computer programming to your real life scenarios, right? And
Yeah,
then that in turn allowed you to really understand, this learning of this new material in Java. That is so cool.
yeah,
Now,
yeah.
that's so awesome. I want to know a little bit of how all this growth. It seems like you really excelled well in computer programming and computer
Mhm.
science at this beginning stages of Java and Java 7. Now, where do you see technology being used to help in education, for example?
Yeah, so I want to take one step back and let you know that I was never that type of student that excelled well. I
Uh-huh.
was that student that just tried harder than everybody else.
Okay.
So to give you an understanding, I have a learning disability. I have dyslexia, so it just takes me much longer to understand stuff. And so I one of my competitive advantages is that I'm just more persistent than my colleagues.
Okay.
And so the question now, to answer your question about where do I see technology helping out academics? Do I have that correct?
Yes. Yeah.
Yes. So basically, kind of fast forward from when I was playing football to now as a professor at Bunker Hill. I I when I'm put into an environment, I want to see how I can innovate and then how I can provide value to the situation that I'm in. And so what I've done is similar to when I was playing, I see that there is a vast disparity in the resources that we have at our school, and
Mm-hmm.
then there's also a vast disparity in just in terms of academics in general.
The industry.
How,
Yeah.
yeah, in the industry,
Yeah.
and so I'm thinking like we have technology here that we could connect with like artificial intelligence technology that we can connect with a vast birth of free information out there that could allow students to learn much faster. So
Mm.
what I did was I started another project, another program company greater than that helps students innovate much faster and learn faster. Because if I don't know how many former students listen to this, but if you were one of my former first students in like my first year, you might have remembered that I took a long time to get back reply back with their grades, like maybe 1 to 3 weeks. And I realized that as a learner, 1 to 3 weeks, that takes a long time. That's like a long time that you're sitting there not knowing what's right and what's wrong. And then furthermore, in those 1 to 3 weeks, you're still learning new information. So how could you possibly compound on that knowledge if you don't have that feedback? And so at Bunker Hill, I understand that we don't have like the TAs or the tutoring systems that you find at a larger four-year institutions.
Of
So I
course.
took it
Yeah.
upon myself to kind of build that, and we got to start small. And so I took it upon myself to build something that is a automatic grading system, but also gives them feedback. And so the idea is, well, I don't know if we have time for this, but I want to share something that we're working on in the computer science department. Is that what we're building here is a whole system that allows for the entire department to be able to offer all their computer science courses with zero fees to their students. And what we
Mm.
use is artificial intelligence to go back to look at OER textbooks. So these are free open
Great.
resource
Yeah. Yeah. Know a
textbooks.
lot about that.
Yeah, so it goes back to those and then extracts the information that you
Mm.
specifically as a student need. So it's more personalized to you rather than
Okay.
taking one single $200 textbook that is just general knowledge of everything.
Mm-hmm.
Go to the OER text, go to Google, because one thing is everything that you get in like you get in a paid textbook is already on the internet. So why would we pay for information that's already there? But one thing that we should be we go to school for is the structure and
Yes.
personalization of the knowledge.
Yep.
And so what we're doing is we're trying to build something that has personalized learning for the students, and then
Mm-hmm.
also zero fees for the student. We're not quite there yet in terms of providing zero fees, but if you take any of my courses, they're all OER, and I
Okay.
leverage everything that is free on the internet, and that's where we're going towards, and that's what we're building with Greater Than.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
OER has always been a discussion up in the air about the quality of the textbook, the quality of the knowledge,
Hmm.
as innovation continues to grow, facts of truth in subjects continue to grow,
Yeah.
right? So the OER was created by Rice University, and you see that those are really beneficial for computer programming languages. And you could say that me getting rid of my C++ from Chan would be worth it
Uh,
with the info. Yeah.
uh, so what do you Chan is a textbook?
Yeah, it's the Java textbook I have,
Yeah.
for example.
So it really depends on what type of learner you are, and then also depends on the what type of teacher you have too, what type of professor you have.
Okay.
Personally, this is my personal approach. My personal approach is to have as many overlapping locations of information or resources of information that I
Mm-hmm.
can
Mm-hmm.
while I'm learning. So
Mm.
if I only have one location or one resource of information, then sometimes or often I'm going to find myself in getting stuck because that might not adequately suit my needs for how I personally learn.
Mm-hmm.
Another thing that you will encounter in the future is that I can't think of many programmers professionally that open up a textbook after they get out of college. It's
Oh,
the internet is really well heavily leveraged because you know this technology stuff is going to change every 6 months.
yes.
The languages, the popularity of different languages. So it's not if you're stuck with the textbook that takes textbooks like take 8 months to
Publish.
publish,
Yeah, write and
and
publish.
so
Yeah.
and then by the time they're out, they're going to be almost old information.
Mm-hmm.
So
Mm-hmm.
why not focus on the stuff that is most current? But I don't
Mm.
want to be pushing any professors or anybody to try to change the way they learn or the way they teach because everybody has their own style. But I know
Yeah.
that there are different ways, and then I also know that like the OER vast OER repository of information, you can get multiple overlapping sources.
Yeah, yeah. I like that you're saying that you're like, hey, I'm looking to offer a new option. I'm not here to
Hmm.
take away all these options that already exist. I'm saying, here's my background, and this is your information and your background, and you're saying, let me just take a little jab at it and
Yeah.
figure out what can I do with the knowledge that you know. And I know SGA has done a huge initiative with OER textbooks.
Hmm.
We really have really pushed for that this semester and last semester, and I really believe that like you're saying, all these things should be readily available, right? It's the same in some degree. It's the same publisher remarketing the same information every single year with a
Yep.
new edition and making a good change. And I remember when I was looking at trying to start college again. I took 5 years off, and I was really uncertain because of the costs, right? That's always
Hmm.
been my biggest thing: is this a good return on my investment, right? Is 3,000 semester really worth it, and are these textbooks worth it? And I always after I signed up for my first semester, I looked at the cost of textbooks, and I was like, oh my goodness. And how long am I going to use these textbooks for? Luckily, I'm using them for 2 semesters, so a little bit more value. But I
Hmm.
looked at, how much did it cost them to print that textbook? How much
Yep.
profit are they making off this textbook? And
Hmm.
and and what I'm hearing from you is that I may not even pick it up after I graduate. You know what I mean?
Yep.
And then I move on to another school, a 4-year college, and see a different textbook. So
Yes.
it can be. Those are all just little pieces of the puzzle that can, I think, for me at a time, could like deter me from going to continue my education, because I like, well, here's 3,000, here's another 200 for this class, here's another 200 for that class, and
Hmm.
and then you tell me I have to go get a key for this online grading thing, and I'm another $100 plus into
Hmm.
my programming lab or a Cynegage WebAssign or something like that,
Hmm.
and it just seems like. From an outside perspective, before going to back to college and a community college, that it's a money pit, it's a money trap, right? And
Hmm.
it can seem very. I can create a many reasons of why I should not go back to school, other than
Hmm.
realizing that this is an investment in myself for a better future and a better way of thinking and understanding. Um, so I think that's really cool.
Yeah. Can I add one more thing
Yeah,
to that?
yeah, of course.
Yes, so I definitely understand that, and what we're also one thing that as somebody that's getting into computer science might not also understand is that there is also an upfront cost in the actual hardware you have to buy too.
Yeah.
And
Let's talk about that. Are you a hardware guy?
a little bit,
A little bit. Okay.
Yeah,
Yeah, you need good hardware to run good programs, you
yeah,
know?
yeah. So it's great that like we have Google Chromebooks, but the thing about Chromebooks is we can't code with Chromebooks. And so this idea that we're working on is that when I say zero fees, I mean zero fees for like the student from the textbook to the hardware.
Mm-hmm.
And now if you come in, like the idea is that we're building a technology here
Mm-hmm.
that allows you to have a virtualized computer system so that you have the fast hardware that you would get if you had paid like thousands of dollars for a fast computer,
Yeah.
but you can access that fast virtualized computer from your cell phone or from a tablet.
Mm-hmm.
And I know that many of us have smartphones, we have tablets at least, and we just need a tablet with the internet connection, and then we are able to compete at the same level as everybody else. So there's no barriers. And then on top of that, with a customized IDE that has completely customized, so it directs you as a student to understand to all the open educational resources that the professor specifically wants for you. So when I say this is not like something that I'm hoping that the students pay for. This is not that. This is what we're building here. This is going to be completely paid for by the school, so that we would want to build a program that has literally no barriers of entry for the students. So like you said, like a money pit, that you can't have that. It's just whether you want to step up and learn.
That's awesome. You're kind of merging the cloud computing aspect into the student learning aspect, and
that's it.
It really does surprise me how many Chromebooks this school invests in. But I kind of it surprises me, but I understand that technology is rapidly changing, right? Like for example, this new generation of AMD chips finally outpassed Intel. And we're seeing Epic Ryzen really take off in computing powers in data centers, and same with the graphics performance. So if you bought a PC today, in 2 years, it's possible the technology could increase by 25 to 50%. So that's I think it's really cool that you're looking to remove that aspect, that initial investment on the student, and saying, hey, we're going to do the back end work, and create this IDE. There's going to be a little fee in the beginning because any R&D requires that, right? And but in the long-term picture, you're really trying to step up what it sounds like the Bunker Hill and the public education system of, Greater Boston to another level that can compete with the Ivy Leagues that exist around here, right? And access that door to those open that door for students moving into this industry. So that's freaking awesome. That sounds cool. I'm just now kind of hearing about this, and I think it almost seems like this, in my mind, why didn't this happen 5 years ago? You know what I mean? And those kind of questions is, why are we not getting there sooner? But I'm sure maybe you have some insight about that.
Why doesn't it happen sooner? I mean, it takes people thinking outside the box. One benefit that I have is that I've only been really teaching here for two years, or I've only had one full semester as a full-time professor on campus. With COVID, then I was taken off campus, but with that, I come in with a completely different mindset of how I perceive things to happen, and that's how innovation occurs. So that's why, when diversity in a workplace is a big advantage to any company at any level, because you have different perspectives on how you see a situation or problem that you're confronted, and you create new innovative ways of solving it.
Yeah, for sure. I want to talk about diversity a little bit but I also want to talk about how have you seen this rapid change in the virtual world, where we can do work remotely, right? Now excel so quickly because of a world crisis like COVID. And why do you think it took so long for us to finally accept Zoom calls are being a thing, and when before we kind of accepted that your Instagram was your identity, or your Facebook was your identity, and all these digital things that end up in ones and zeros become you. You know.
Mhm.
So why do you think there was that delay?
So I feel oftentimes things move in waves.
Mm.
So you'll find that with the advent of social media, there really wasn't anything around like that before. So
Mm-hmm.
we gravitated towards the separation of ourselves physically, but getting closer digitally. But
Mm.
now, as we are forced to be separated physically with COVID, we're attempting to trying to get some type of face-to-face contact, such as what we see with Zoom and WebEx. So
Ah.
as things are moving in waves, I highly, I think that in the future, after COVID is finished, you're going to see more face-to-face. I often see a lot of students nowadays are wanting more synchronous courses. I might be wrong in that, but it seems that more synchronous courses. But the question I wonder is, like, we had those synchronous courses, back when we're in person. So what's really the difference? But I guess it's really the interconnectedness, because now we're forced apart.
Yeah, no, you're right. You're right, and it's. I would think the same thing, that like synchronous or asynchronous courses are going to expand more
Mhm.
because, in a way you could get the same education, but like in a cheaper rented area than the greater Boston, area where
Yeah.
rent is so much money.
Yes.
But I think it's an interesting debate to talk about.
Mhm.
Um, Wait, actually, let's just pause for 1 second. It looks like we're having some stream issues. Let me lower
Okay.
the frame rate. Okay, we're back. We're back. All right. Hopefully,
Excellent.
we don't lose anything. Um, so where was I just at? So we were just talking about how possibly asynchronous classes could take off, maybe not,
Mhm.
and those doors are also opening up for the work environment. Do you
Mhm.
see it? If I were to go into the field, in the next 2 years, do you see that I could be working from the woods in a tech job? Like, let's say if I wanted to move like in the middle of Oregon, right? Like, do you think I
Mhm.
could go and do that? Because it just makes me a little bit happier to see some trees than see the concrete jungle all the time.
Well, before COVID happened, I think a year before, I did read an article in Time magazine about how there was more of a slow trend towards separation of the actual office space. So
Mm-hmm.
there are more remote working environments,
Mm-hmm.
and I can only imagine that this situation of COVID has just accelerated that growth.
Mm-hmm.
And so, especially with the now the freelance society, or our understanding of how a lot of us are becoming freelancers, and you don't need to actually have a physical working space to do that type of development. um, what I can say, I can't really speak more to that, as I don't have much
Yeah, I
research,
know.
but I can say that there are opportunities out there. As if anybody that's on Stack Overflow, you'll see on the side, you'll see the job postings, and you'll see some of them will say remote, and
Mm-hmm.
often now a lot of them are saying remote.
Oh yeah, that's
Yeah.
awesome. Okay, so I remember my previous question now,
Mhm.
which was, um, you know, I know I'm in Professor Miller's class right now, and she recently did a poll, and it was like, "Hey, computer science students, how would you prefer to take your classes in the fall of 2021?"
Mhm.
And I believe 75% of the students or more answered that they wanted to do it in person.
Mhm.
And you talked about socialization a little bit, and I was just wondering, like, how does socialization occur in the computer science industry when it comes to the classroom, right? Or when it comes to students going into the classroom, because I was a gamer at one point, but outside of my gaming life, I was very introverted. So,
Mhm.
do you see that those two have a connection? Being in classroom and learning CS is extremely important, or
Can you tell me a little bit more what you mean by socialization?
I guess I'm always curious about like group dynamics, right?
Okay. Yep.
Group projects and group dynamics, and how important is that to the STEM field?
It is actually something that I wish. I had more of when I was in school,
Mm.
and then I wish I could implement more in my classes because you often will never work on anything just by yourself.
Mm.
And understanding just this, there's a lot of stuff that that goes into group dynamics, especially when you're coding, making sure that like what you're sending or checking into the repository
Mm.
is meets a certain quality, and there's stuff that we just can't teach because there's just not enough time.
Mm.
And yeah, socialization definitely plays a major role to the extent that you just have an understanding of how to work in a group and how to develop in a group and coexist as a fellow developer
Mm.
and be able to communicate problems and then overcome those problems together.
I see. I see.
Mhm.
Now, diversity in a work environment is extremely important, as
Mhm.
and I'm a Asian American student, and so how has it been for you as a minority to work in a field that has a little less diversity than we hoped for?
Um, so when I recognize that you the diversity is a huge problem, and I also recognize that it typically don't look like the individuals that are in my field. But I always take that as an advantage because
Mm.
you know when you walk into an environment and expected of you, then you have to kind of live up to those expectations. And then if you do live up to those expectations, you're not thought of as anything different. But if nothing is expected of you, then you don't have to live up to any expectations, and you can just be yourself.
Mm.
And so I really do love the fact of being different in any instance that I'm in. It really was I was really confronted with it in college
Mm.
because I wasn't just it was because I was an athlete, and typically athletes don't do like a smarter degree, like a smart degree, like anything in the STEM area.
Sure, sure.
And so
You're a
I'm
jock,
I'm
you're like
yeah,
gym rat, whatever, a little
yep.
combination.
And I'm sitting in class. I'm like two times larger than anybody in the classroom, and it just if you can just work by having no expectations, then you're able
Mm.
to work and only compete with yourself. You're no longer competing with what people expect you to be. And then if you're competing with yourself, then the sky is really the limit, because if you're just competing with the person that's first, then
Mm-hmm.
you're just going to only be a little marginally better than who is first. But if you get
Mm.
10% better than yourself each day, then imagine think about the compounding rate after 1 year of growth after just doing
Yeah.
10% each day. So one thing I'd highly impress upon anybody that's entering any field, and whether they fit in or they don't fit in, is just to focus internally on
Mm.
yourself, and in making yourself the person that you want to be, rather than trying to fit into what the world expects you to be.
That's a great message right there. That's an awesome message. Comparing yourself to your past self, right? Not
Hmm.
comparing yourself to your surroundings. And if you compare yourself to your surroundings, you really create competition, unhealthy competition
Yep.
in your environment, right? Imagine,
Hmm.
I played baseball and soccer and a little bit of football, being how skinny, string bean I am. But
Hmm.
if you compete with your own teammates, then you get on that field to play against another team. The dynamics are so off. There's no coordination. You're flopping, you're fumbling the football, and you're just making bad moves and bad